You ever listen to a podcast and wonder what is wrong with these people? Or is that just when you're listening to Love Lessons? Well, at any rate, today we want to share our story, why we're so passionate about sharing hope and encouragement with other couples and letting them know that there is hope for their relationship as well. We're going to make fun of each other. Who knows what's going to happen, but this is Love Lessons.
Real life. Real talk. Real relationships. Faith-based tips, tricks, and challenges to improve your marriage and change your life. It's the Love Lessons podcast with your hosts, Christian counselors and marriage experts, Dr. Zach and Blair Gammon.
Hey there, and welcome to the Love Lessons podcast. We're glad you're here. I am especially glad to be here because it's a miracle I'm alive.
Why?
Are you going to tell everybody what you did?
Okay, is this about the picture?
Yes, it's about the picture.
Okay, so there's a photo that Zach has now made his profile picture on his personal Facebook page. And
I feel like you're already downplaying
this. It is
this.
a picture of me standing behind him, holding a very large, sharp, pointy knife.
Yeah.
Butcher knife, if you will.
You can just stop right there. It tells everything you need to know.
No. It does not tell the whole story.
They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I have plenty.
And Zach is taking the photo, right? So, you know, if you were fighting for your life at that point, you would think you wouldn't be, like, documenting it with a selfie. But you are taking a photo of yourself looking kind of fearful with me standing behind you with a blank face holding this very large knife.
Yeah, it's photographic evidence of how I'm treated.
No, it is a photographic evidence that you give everyone a hard time. You took that photo to send to somebody to give them a hard time and tell them how horribly you're treated.
Right, and now the whole world knows.
It was a joke. And
I'm
you were
not
acting
laughing.
like death. You but did you die? Have you heard that? But did you die? You are still here today, living and
I
breathing.
barely escaped with my life.
You had no marks on your body. There were no stab wounds.
That people have seen. Probably gonna get stabbed when I get home just for bringing this up.
I do feel a bit of rage talking about this.
Exactly.
Always the victim.
Let me
You narcissist.
start with me, woman. Let me tell you the most offensive thing about all of this.
Okay.
I posted this on Facebook. And not one single person seems concerned for my life. In fact, a majority of the comments said, "What'd you do now, Zach?" None of you people care about my safety and well-being.
Should you learn a lesson from this?
This is Love Lessons, not Zach Lessons. I have learned nothing.
Don't I know it? Should you not take and gather, from this situation, based on the comments, that people are not sympathetic because they know that you deserve it, that you
Did
it
I
on.
deserve to be stabbed to death?
There was no stabbing.
You had a
There
knife
was
in your hand,
mild
woman.
threatening at best. Mild. Do we need to have like a funeral for you or something? Like,
Oh, so you are going to kill me now.
what are you asking here? What's your heartburn about?
I want to stop feeling threatened in my own home.
Do you?
Yes. Our friend
Do we
David
need
Fogel.
to get rid of all the knives?
Our friend David Fogel.
It's hard to cut an onion with a spoon. But okay. You really
You'd
like
be in
onions,
tears
so
over
I
it,
guess
wouldn't
I
you?
would, yeah.
Our friend, you're making my eye twitch. It's twitching right now.
Oh, you're making my eye twitch. Where's my knife?
Our friend David Fogel likes to walk up to random people in places and just whisper, "I don't feel safe in my own home." And if you knew his wife, Kim, you would know that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Right.
She's one of the kindest people you'll ever meet.
And probably embarrassed when he says that.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
which I think is why he does it. To the point that he did that in a doctor's office one day, and they almost called the police, and he had to convince them it was a joke. I think it was a doctor's office. It was somewhere that they were like mandated reporters.
Yeah.
And
This sounds exactly like something that would happen to us.
yeah.
And the police would show up. They would
Yeah.
take me to jail. Again, we talked about jail 3 hots and a cot already, so I think I would be okay.
Right.
But it doesn't mean I wouldn't be mad when I got out.
and then you just come and stab me.
And then go back to jail, and here we go. Anyway, okay, yeah, I see the error of that.
What's the statistics on repeat offenders? Like, once you go to jail, you're like, isn't it like 80-something% likely you're gonna? Yeah, it's 110% for you.
Okay. So I'm not gonna hurt you because I don't want to go to jail.
Oh wow, I would appreciate it if you wouldn't hurt me because you love me.
I do love you.
Barely.
I feel like every episode of Love Lessons is just how Blair doesn't love Zach. Because the last episode, we talked about how I don't love you because I won't match you.
Yeah, and now you're trying to kill me.
And now I'm trying to kill you. It's always...
The people deserve to know the truth.
You're like the boy who cried wolf.
I'm like the boy who just wants somebody to love him.
You're so desperate.
Speaking of, let me tell you what our daughter did last night. Last night, I got to pull up the message. I was ordering some dinner, and DoorDash is one of my favorite apps. It's the greatest invention ever. And so
Or the worst.
I sent Haven, our almost 13-year-old, a text because she's upstairs and she doesn't hang out with us school kids, and said, "Hey, I'm ordering this. Do you want anything?" And she said, "No, thanks." And so I said, "I am heartbroken." And her response was, "Go to the hospital. I don't know what to tell you."
See, even she's tired of your crap.
I'm tired of my own crap. You want to hear a fun fact?
Do you have something that's fun?
I have a fun fact.
Okay, have at it.
So the part of the wedding ceremony where the wedding officiant asks if anyone has any objections is actually an evolution of a more violent tradition.
Okay.
This seems like it would fit you well. So...
You're so rude. Go ahead.
In ancient times, during the wedding ceremony, the groom had to keep his sword hand free, not his strong hand, but his sword hand. It's probably inappropriate, sorry. He had to keep his sword hand free to help fend off other potential suitors, because, unless the vows have been spoken and the covenant's been sealed, she's still fair game.
They were going to come steal her from the altar?
Yeah. Could you imagine? So thankfully we're a little more civilized these days, and hopefully nobody is bringing swords to a wedding. We hope. But Blair still brings butcher knives to the kitchen to stab her husband.
They stay in the kitchen. They hang out there. Where I cut onions and you, apparently.
And I cry when both of those things happen.
So, I don't remember you having a sword or your hand being free the day that we got married.
No, because we have evolved from that ancient barbaric tradition.
I don't think you love me because you're not willing to fight for me.
I never said I would.
You're not willing to kill a man for me.
I absolutely would.
Where's your sword?
I have a gun. I don't have swords. This is 2023, not 1723.
You bought a gun to a knife fight?
Yeah, and I'm going to win.
You're going to win. Hopefully you don't run out of bullets. Or you would do what I do with a chainsaw and just throw it at him and run the other way.
Start pistol whipping people.
That's it. It's like you're John Wick or something.
Whipping people. Anyway, I would just like to point out, by the way, you always complain about fun facts.
They do make me giggle, though.
So our friend Devin Ramsey, who we've known since high school, and bless her heart, she still likes us, especially knowing us from high school. She recently said on Facebook that she... Why did I do Facebook? It's not like Barack Obama. Now, look. She recently said on Facebook that she loves fun facts, and it's a great conversation starter for her and her husband. So thank you, Devin, for being the only supporter around here of the fun fact.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Devin.
Further proof that Blair doesn't love me.
But I do like Devin. You're okay. She's really cool.
This is why Zach doesn't get any love lessons.
You're just going to keep up with this, aren't you?
I just scan out myself.
Mm-hmm. So, speaking of high school, speaking of back in the day, let's throw it back a little bit.
To 2006, when I could throw it back without fracturing hip.
Yeah, old man. No, I actually want to go a little further.
Okay.
Yeah. Back to 2003.
Oh. Did anything exciting happen then?
Yeah, that is when we met.
Oh.
Yeah.
Over 20 years ago.
Over 20 years ago. So I think it's time that we take people through our story.
Okay.
They've been listening to us long enough.
I hope they're ready.
They've heard the professional side.
They're going to need a professional after they hear
They
this.
probably will, but we're gonna. It's time. It's time to do the unveiling.
Let me set the stage.
Set the stage.
2003.
2003.
In a world. In Miss York's class, in journalism class, which should just end right there. Everybody already knows. We had a journalism class where we put out a newspaper. I was the editor of the paper because, of course, I was.
No one is surprised.
Blair was the worst article writer in history. It was so bad.
He still brings those up. He knows where they're at on the internet.
Yes. And they're still surviving 20 years later.
And he will once every couple of years.
I'll read it to you.
He will walk into a room, say nothing, but just start reading this article to me.
Yes, that's great. Your writing was about as good in 2003. So
there's nothing more shaming than hearing your own writing
when you're 13.
When you're 13
dramatic.
and it's.
Well, you weren't even 13 yet. You were still 12 at the time. We were both 12.
Yeah, 12 or 13.
Yeah. So we met in this little journalism class. We didn't sign up for it. We just got stuck in it. And
that's how Zach's career started.
Yeah.
And that's where my career stopped. Right there. With Miss Price Retires, right there.
So Blair wrote an article about our principal retiring, and it was single-handedly the worst piece of journalism I've ever seen in my life. Anyway, so we met, and you were the absolute worst. The worst.
No one believes you.
It's not a
Your hair
lie.
is big and full of lies.
Is it a lie? Is it a lie that you were the worst?
I was not nice. I don't know that I was the worst, but
Okay, that's fair. You weren't the worst, but you were not the best.
So, not to get too deep in the weeds here, but I had a pretty traumatic childhood. We had just moved probably 8 months prior to this to Kentucky from Tennessee. And so I was trying to figure out who I was going to be, and who I wanted to be friends with and all of that stuff. And so while you were just fine, it was all a me situation. I was just trying to be likable and have friends and be liked and not be ostracized like I was in my old hometown.
And so you made some friends with some mean girls. And you were mean to me. So I was not innocent here. I was a big old dork, and I was just trying to get attention from anybody who would give it, and you didn't like that.
You wore chunky shoes, which today are all the rage.
Why don't you explain what chunky shoes
They
are?
were big, thick, white. I don't even know. Were they New Balances?
They were Nikes. They were hand-me-downs, and I had never had name brand anything before. And so they were, the soles were, 4 inches thick on these suckers.
Just big.
All the kids wear them now, and they're very cool, but I could never wear a pair of them. And so our friend Hannah from middle school and high school called them chunky shoes. And in fact, Hannah sent me a message, not that long, maybe 6 months ago on Facebook. We haven't talked in several years. And in that message, she brought up chunky shoes. And I was like, wow, thank you.
It's one thing we know you for is having chunky shoes.
Oh, God.
Today, you would be in fashion, though. Vintage chunky shoes.
Yeah. But it'd be cringe if I wear it now.
Yeah.
It's kids.
But Zach was a big old dork with his...
Which I still am, just for the record.
Didn't know how to talk to girls, but what 12 or 13-year-old boy does, right? And
I was kind of like one of those like golden retriever puppies where like they I was really excited, but I would like trip over my own feet, and like I hadn't grown into my ears and my teeth yet.
Yep.
It was great. I'm going to show a picture if I can find one on YouTube. It'll be great.
So, but you really were like a golden retriever puppy in the fact that you just wanted the approval of the teacher. And so
of anybody,
you
really.
were like that suck up kid that's
Absolutely.
like, hey, you remember to check our homework you gave us? Like that was you. And no one likes that guy. No one likes that kid. And so
Nobody
immediately you're much more endearing now than you were then. Now you're like, screw the homework. But back then you're like, hey, you gave us homework. Do you want me to do an extra assignment? Blair, your article's not very good. You need to work on your grammar.
Okay, I didn't sound like that.
That was before puberty hit. I'm not sure, but that's what we're going with. Anyway, we did not like each other.
I actually got in trouble because of you.
What?
You didn't know this?
No.
I got sent to detention because of you.
No, you didn't.
I did.
What are you talking about?
I called you a bad name.
What? To
And
who?
Miss York overheard me telling somebody when I said that you were something that I can't repeat on this podcast.
No, you did not.
I got sent to detention.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Huh. I was really insufferable myself then. So anyway, we met when we were 12, 13 years old in Miss York's journalism class. And never really
as
talked.
they say, the rest is history.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, there's a lot of there's a lot of history.
Okay.
So didn't really talk after that until high school. That was our 8th grade year until like junior year of high school. And we start messaging on MySpace.
Back in the day.
Back in the day with MySpace. And that's really where we got to know each other outside of school, just messaging back and forth. And you had a girlfriend at the time, and she was on and off, and it was, pretty dysfunctional.
It was more toxic than an oil spill.
Yeah.
It was just a mess.
So you would talk to me about that, and, I would, give you guidance. Here I am a counselor all these years later. Anyway, and so through that, we really bonded, and we became friends, really. And then as our friendship developed, I was like, I kind of like this guy.
Yeah.
And so I finally said, you know what? I'm going to shoot my shot. And so I sent you a message on MySpace.
And the rest is history.
No, the rest is not history.
Okay,
There's a lot more to the story.
Okay, there's more history.
And so I invited you on a date. And you said, okay, well, I have no money. I have no car. I cannot drive you. I have no license. And I said, well, don't worry. I do. I have all of those things.
Those were not good qualities.
But you were 16. If you had been 26, it would have been a lot different.
Well, if you had been 26, or if I would have been 26, it would have been illegal. But aside from that, those are just not those are not qualities in a prospective mate.
Today, at 33, you do have a job, and you do have a car, and you do have a license.
I do.
So it did work out.
Yeah.
It worked out.
And the rest is history.
No, it's not.
Oh,
Stop.
there's more. Okay.
So I picked you up, and we went to Bowling Green. I bought you chicken nuggets, and I took you to the movies. We played a Sudoku puzzle. Sudoku. Chinese word. No, it's not even words. It's numbers. We played a puzzle while we waited for the movie to start.
Because you were nervous.
I was so nervous.
Over the boy who didn't have a car, a license, a job, or any hope. Any
hope.
promise.
That's what we were living on.
Any promise of, anything. And
I was super nervous.
And I was scared to death during that movie because I don't like thrillers or horror movies. It wasn't even a horror movie. This was a thriller.
Yeah.
I was scared to death on the edge of my seat the entire time, but I'm trying to play it cool because I want you to think I'm cool. Meanwhile, you want me to think you're cool, and it was just neither of us were cool.
Neither of us were cool. No. So I took you home, dropped you off. You gave me a kiss.
And the rest is history.
Nope. The rest is not history. There's more. There's more. There's history. And so that was late in April, April, early May. It was a Saturday. 1 week later was prom.
And we both showed up to prom.
But
not together.
So
I got back with oil spill. And
very quickly, I might add, after our date.
Like
I find out later. I don't know this. Yeah.
And
I was with a guy friend who we had already decided to go to prom platonically together.
What I didn't share with you on the date is that I was broke because I had actually bought her prom dress. It was this bright red prom dress, which conversely was also the color of your face when you saw her and I together at prom.
I was pissed.
Yeah, you were enraged.
I was enraged.
Yeah.
If I had
a chainsaw,
you'd have been done for, dude.
Yeah.
And
it was not a good time.
No. So we got into it online after that, and we didn't talk anymore the rest of the summer.
Yeah. I think we started coming around when school started.
Yes, yeah, school started. We kind of, by that point, you were officially done with oil spill.
Yes.
And I think you dated a couple of other girls over the summer. And so, you were back on the market, ready to go.
Right.
And so you reached out to me. It was actually early.
I hope we don't get hate mail from her for calling her oil spill if she finds this online.
She's probably not like that today.
Hopefully.
But
I hope she's not.
Back then she was. But I also had my own oil spill. So it was, we were all messy. So you reached out to me and said, hey, can I get a ride to work? My car's in the shop. What I now know is that you didn't have a license.
Or a car.
You were lying because you didn't want to sound uncool.
Right. My dad was out of town or something. He was taking me to work. I had the car. I did have the car at that point, I think. But
he had no license to drive the car.
I still had my permit. He wouldn't let me get my license till I turned 17.
Which was the next day.
Right.
Yes.
And I did get my license, by the way, that day, on my birthday. And so I made up a story, told you my car was in the shop. It was not in the shop. It was in the driveway at home. And you took me to work. And I ended our trip with a kiss because I was just out here kissing everybody.
Yeah. And here I was going, okay, he's single. He's available.
This is it.
This is it.
Rainbows and butterflies.
And then nothing happened. Didn't hear from you again. It was very platonic. Like,
Yeah.
at this point, I was like, I can't be doing all the work here.
Right.
You know, he just shows up and throws in a couple of kisses occasionally, but I'm pulling the weight here. And so I said, nope, not going to do this. And so I went on my own separate way. And
And the rest is history.
nope, not history.
Oh.
Nope. So then high school ends.
Yeah. And the rest is history.
No, it's not.
Okay. Oh, bad. So we reconnected online on
Yep.
Facebook this time. We took a step up from MySpace.
Yep.
Right? And
Couple years later.
we lived about 4 hours away from each other. So we decided we were going to actually give this thing a go. And we engaged in a long distance relationship. Right? And like everything in our lives, we do nothing in moderation.
No.
So we went on vacation to Florida, where I had already decided I was going to propose. Now, there was some back and forth because I couldn't afford the ring because I was, too poor to afford basic necessities like electricity, but I somehow thought I was going to buy an engagement ring.
Mind you, we've been together for about 3.5 months at this point.
Right. We were very wise at 19.
Yep.
And so my granddad gets into this big, long conversation, unprompted, by the way, because we never told him we were considering getting married, that all of his kids who got married in a traditional church service had gotten divorced, but all of his kids that had gotten married in a courthouse were still married to that day. And so, through a series of conversations later that evening, we basically ended up at the same point where we were like, hey, so you just want to get married tomorrow while we're here? And in all of our 19-year-old wisdom, we were like, that's a great idea.
Fantastic
Right.
idea. Yeah.
So then we called our family members.
That was a dumpster fire combined with a train wreck.
Combined with an oil spill.
They were, much to our surprise, very unhappy
I couldn't imagine why.
that we said, hey, we're going to get married tomorrow. If you want to drive 9 hours to be there, you can. Otherwise, we'll see you when we get back from vacation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still can remember being at 19 and all of my wisdom being dumbfounded as to why they were.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't even met a majority of your immediate family. It's not like we're talking about distant people. I'm like, I don't know that
You'd never met my dad. No, you did. You met him when we were on the way to that vacation.
Yeah. And
We stopped off.
I talked to your mother, twice maybe?
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah. So they were all furious. But
For good reason.
We forged on ahead. Mm-hmm. And we got married the next day.
Yeah.
This is my favorite story to tell. Mm-hmm. Well, let me just
Set the stage.
let me set the stage.
For March 10th of 2010.
So we had no money, right?
We were too broke to pay attention.
You're dang right.
Yep.
So
I don't even know how we had the gas to get down to that
I'm
vacation.
pretty sure that I overdrafted my bank account.
Yeah.
So
There were no rings.
right, I'm trying to set the stage.
Okay.
Let me set the stage.
Okay.
There were no rings. So we're in Milton, Florida, outside of Pensacola, in Santa Rosa County. So we go to the Santa Rosa County Courthouse to
Get a marriage license.
to do the process, whatever the process is. I don't know. I've never been married before, so I was just I just knew that's where you started, and I was hoping they could fill in the blanks from there. So we get there. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if the president was in town or what was happening, but we were waiting to get into the courthouse. It takes forever. The line is forever long, and so it's you and me, and then my grandmother and grandfather, and Bradley, our first baby. She came from a previous marriage, or previous relationship rather, and we're trying to get in this line. We get in there. We finally discover what's taking so long. It's that all these people are having to walk through a metal detector, and then there's a security guard with a wand. Like, I think she thought she had too much power with that wand, wanding everybody. It was a whole ordeal. And so we have to try to get through security. And so, we're passing the baby back and forth. I have to take my belt off, my shoes off, my pants off. It was very awkward for everybody involved. And I didn't really take my pants off. But we go through this line. She wands and everything. We've passed poor Briley around like she's a hot potato. We finally get through. And I'm like, hey, where do we go to get a marriage license? And she goes, oh, honey, you're in the wrong building for that. So then I thought about calling her a word that would have gotten me sent to detention.
To jail.
Or to jail. I don't think she was a police officer. I think she was just a security guard.
Okay.
And so I don't think she had arresting authority. Maybe, I don't know what the rules are in Florida. Anyway, it's not the point. Maybe an alligator can arrest you in Florida. Anyway, so we put our pants back on and we get out the door and we have to go to the courthouse annex, which was a mile down the road, where there is no security. You just walk in and it's just there.
It's like the clerk's office is what it is
an
there.
An alligator could have walked in there.
Yeah, and probably did at some point.
And probably did. And so we go in and we walk up to the desk and there's this lady sitting there and we're like, hey, we're in love and we're here to apply for a marriage license. Mind you, we already knew what the rules were because since if you're an out-of-state resident, there was no wait. But if you're like, in most states, if you get married in the state in which you reside, there's like a 3 to 4 day waiting period to make sure you're really going to do it. Might have been smart in Missouri or in Florida, wherever we were with the alligators. And so they were like, we need a marriage license. And the lady who did not care that we loved each other and did not look like she loved a single soul was like, okay, fine. So she had us fill out some paperwork. And so it's like 9:30 at this point. And she said, great, be back here at 10 and we're going to get married. And we're like, oh, that's quick. We assumed like she had to go get the justice of the peace out of his chambers and help him put his robe on or something. I don't know what and his little Washington style wig that he wore. In my mind, that's what he looked like. And so we're like, crap, now we got to go buy rings. So we have to go to Walmart because it's the only place that we could afford. No shame with Walmart rings. You're still wearing your Walmart ring to this day.
Will till the day I die.
That's right. Mine broke, unfortunately, because...
You did till the day it died.
Anyway, it's still somewhere at the house.
We've got it, yeah.
So we drive to Walmart. We go in, we overdraft the checking account some more, and we buy some wedding rings. And then I have to fly back to the courthouse. Because mind you, Walmart is over in Pensacola, 25 minutes away. No, I don't know how far away it was.
It was far.
It was far. But I had our 30-minute window to get to a store that was, there and back was way more than 30 minutes. So I'm flying on the interstate, got my flashers on. It's a whole thing.
We were almost late to our own wedding.
We were. People around us probably thought we were having some kind of emergency, and the only emergency that I was trying to get back to the alligator who was the justice of the peace with his Washington-style wig on. There's an oil spill nearby. And
I always thought you were rushing back so that we could go ahead and tie this thing down so that I wouldn't decide, no, I don't want to do it.
If that's what you want to think, that's fine. So we get there. And we walk in and we're like, okay, we're here. Where's the alligator with the wig? Let's get married. And there was no alligator and there was no wig, but it was just as obnoxious. And so this lady, who again doesn't care if we live or die, asks us what our names are. And so she puts them on a sticky note. And she takes a Bible. And she opens it up and she puts the sticky note in there. And I'm like, I guess she's going to give this to the justice of the peace, the alligator, so that he can know what our names are. No, that does not happen.
It was all just a bunch of...
There's still no alligator.
It was a crock.
There's still no alligator.
There's still no alligator.
This is the dumbest thing I've ever talked about on the podcast. So she walks us over to the opposite side of the room where there's... Picture it.
Sicily,
1912. There's a conference room table, a fake tree, and there's a wall of glass that's like that 90s style privacy glass, like the little glass blocks. And she says, okay, turn and face each other. And we're like, oh, this is happening. I would have been less surprised had I seen an actual crocodile. And so she stands there and she starts her little spiel. And she's reading off of she's reading out of this Bible, which I think there were notes already taped inside.
I think there was a script taped inside of it.
And so she's like, do you, and then she stops and looks over at the sticky note. She goes, Zach, take, and then she goes back to the sticky note, Blair, to be your lawfully headed blah, blah, blah. So she reads the stuff off the sticky notes. It's a whole mess. We're already trying not to laugh at the absurdity of what's happening right now.
We are shaking with emotion, but it is not.
We're not like... in awe and
no.
in love. We're in hysterics.
We're not overcome with love. We're overcome like trying not to laugh at it's so preposterous. Preposterous. Yeah.
And so that's a big word. Good job. So in the middle of this, when you think it can't get any more stupid, at some point a guy walks in needing to fill out some type of, I think it's some kind of assistance form, like public assistance form or something. I don't know what's going on. But at any rate, he sits down. And he doesn't sit down like at the opposite end of this long table. He's like between you and me, or where this table is. That's how close he was to us.
Like our grandparents and Briley, your grandparents and Briley are there as the witnesses. And he sits down between them and us.
Yes.
He gets in the middle of the wedding party that we're having here, beside the plant.
Right. So
he was more of a witness than they were at this
yes,
point.
he was. And so we finished with the ceremony. I'm honestly not sure if we weren't getting punked. We may not even be legally married at this point. And as we're walking away from this like dumpster fire, I hear him say to himself, "Man, that was beautiful." There was nothing beautiful about that.
So we get to the end of this.
And the rest is history.
No, the rest is not history at this point. Grandma had gotten a new phone earlier that day, and she was our photographer. We get outside, and we're wanting to look at the pictures. And Grandma realized that she had either not been taking them or had deleted them, or there was user error and there were no photos of the actual ceremony itself.
Right. Further making me question, is this even real?
Is this even real? Was this a fever dream that we had? So we have one photo, and we'll put it up on YouTube.
There you go.
Of us outside of the courthouse the day that we got married.
The courthouse annex.
Excuse me. Yes, let me correct myself there. And after that, it was about lunchtime. And we were like, you know what? We're hungry. Let's go across the parking lot to McDonald's and get some chicken nuggets. So we went and we got some chicken nuggets and got Bradley lunch.
Chicken nuggets are a recurring theme in our relationship.
Chicken nuggets and journalism. And social media and journalism.
And the rest is history.
And not quite.
Oh, there's more?
Yeah.
This episode of the Love Lessons podcast is brought to you by Crosspoint Theological Seminary. CTS offers online education and degree programs in the areas of Christian counseling, life coaching, business management, and church leadership. Learn more and apply online at www.crosspoint.education. Plus, use code LOVE on your application, and CTS will waive your enrollment fee. Crosspoint Theological Seminary provides an affordable, quality Christian education to move your ministry forward.
So we've shared some of the funny and the silly, but I think that it's important that we share some of the serious, because it's really at the heart of why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Right? So early on in our marriage, we hadn't been married very long. Our brains weren't fully developed. We just made poor choices, and we just hurt each other over and over again. And so that led to ultimately I was unfaithful, and the relationship didn't last very long, but it was, and it shouldn't have happened. But after it ended, I was convinced that I wasn't going to share that with you. I was going to carry it to the grave.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately just caused more distance in our relationship, right? It caused more hurt and more pain. And the more that I tried to stuff it down, the more that we just kept hurting each other, right?
Yeah.
And so then we moved shortly thereafter to Owensboro, where we live now, and the hurt just kind of continued.
Yeah, we thought that we'd have a fresh start, even though, I didn't know everything, and but just knew that we had been running up against troubles, and so we were in Owensboro, and troubles continued, right? Because you might have a new place, but you still have the same people with the same issues, and we hadn't worked through those dysfunctions and those issues that we had. And so shortly after we moved to Owensboro, I started having an affair with someone, and it was also short-lived, and I ended it, and I also said that I would never tell you. And so same situation we were in, that we both said we will never tell the other person. We will just start working on a relationship, and we'll go to the grave with it.
Yeah.
And it was a couple of months after that had ended and I'd made that decision, and I was at work one day, and I have never felt God so much in my life as I did that day. And it was the Holy Spirit, and it was tell him. And I immediately knew what I was supposed to tell and who I was supposed to tell, and it was you about the affair. Tell him, to the point where I couldn't do any work. It was consuming me. And I actually had texted you and asked, like, hey, what are you doing? Because I was going to just go home. Like, wherever you're at work or whatever it is, just go home. We need to talk about something. You were too wrapped up and couldn't, and so I had to spend the rest of the day just waiting to go home, like dreading I'm going to have to drop this bomb, because I knew I'm going to tell him and he's going to leave me. And in that couple of months, we had done some healing work, and we had really kind of grown back together. Not completely, obviously, because we still had all these things, but we had started this journey of reconciliation. And so we weren't necessarily in a bad place.
Yeah.
And I knew that once I told you, we were going to be in a bad place and we were not going to be together.
Yeah.
So I went home and I told you. And you walked outside. You walked away. And I just remember laying on my bedroom floor, sobbing, going like, this is it. This is what I've done. And you walked back in. And you told me, I have something I need to tell you.
Yeah.
And so then you also told me what you had done.
Yeah.
And you were broken in that moment, thinking that I was going to leave you. And two wrongs do not make a right. But I believe that it certainly helped us in our healing journey. I'm not recommending that anyone go and do it. Please don't. But it helped us put it in perspective so well.
You know, I look back at that, and it's like, you know, people talk about having like an out-of-body experience, and I, you know, sometimes roll my eyes when I hear stuff like that. But like, I can almost picture us like sitting in that floor, like just both of us just weeping.
And holding each other.
Yeah, and I don't know that we had ever been so just honest with each other. And so it's, again, don't recommend it, but there was something so powerful because that was the catalyst for us. We in that moment, we had a decision to make.
We did.
We can leave, and we can blow this whole thing up, and we can tear our kids' lives apart. And we both had, you know, biblical reasoning to leave the other person, frankly. Or we can make this work. And thank God that we did. But I can remember sitting there thinking, like, I don't know how this is ever going to work.
How are we going to get through this?
How are we going to get through this? How are we going to trust each other? How are we going to, how do we survive? And so we had a friend at church that had really been pouring into us, and he and his wife were Christian counselors, and bless their hearts, it was a Monday afternoon, and like they were still probably working. They might have had like a small group or something at church, I don't know, but we were like psycho calling them. Oh, they were at their office, they were working, they were seeing clients. We psycho called both of them because, you know, our world was crashing down, and we thought that it was going to be just as dramatic to them. And they came over to our house, and they were like, it's all going to be okay.
I remember us pouring our hearts out to them and telling them everything that we had told each other. And I remember looking at him, and I said, do you think we need counseling? And he said, yes.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I guess we do. And like looking back on that now, knowing what I know, I'm like, you ding dong.
Right.
You've needed counseling your entire life. Of course you need counseling.
But they were so gracious.
They were.
And marriage counseling with them, you know, I really do attribute that a lot of what we experienced with them helped to save our relationship.
Absolutely.
Because they created this space for us where we, you know, we could work through these things. And so, you know, we've said it before, but we don't just do this because we're passionate about it as professionals. We've lived it. We have been on the brink of divorce multiple times. I mean, that was, you know, the worst of it. And thankfully none since then, because we've, you know, learned how to communicate. But, you know, I mean, I've shared with you before that, you know, there was a time during that season that, like, I'd already been researching like apartments that were for rent and considering what it would look like, because I knew that it was going to come to an end. And so, and that is a hard place to be in.
Right. And through that, God birthed our ministry, what it is that we do and what He's called us to do.
Yeah.
And so when we counsel people, it's out of a place of education, certainly, but also understanding.
Yeah. Compassion.
Yeah. Know what it's like. And maybe it's not infidelity in your relationship. Maybe it's just, you know, communication issues, or just not understanding one another, or not having grace, or, you know, any number of things. But, you know, we've walked a similar path, and so we can have that compassion and understand, I know what they're going through.
You've experienced this too, but when you have somebody who comes in who has been unfaithful, or they yell at their spouse and treat them bad, and they've just, you know, beat them down over the years or whatever it is, and these people, especially the ones who are just so broken, and they're, you know, they're so concerned that you're going to think less of them because, you know, they've been unfaithful or they've struggled with pornography or whatever, they've somehow hurt their spouse. And while I don't want them to do that anymore, it's also like, listen, like, you don't, Like,
There's no judgment.
No.
None.
No. It's grace. Like, you've screwed up.
Yeah.
But there is hope.
Absolutely.
Right? I just, there are very few situations that I've ever seen that I think are totally hopeless. And so it's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
You know.
And while our marriage is not perfect by any means, it's much better than it ever has been. It just continues to grow and evolve and get better and better, even when you think it can't. But, we still have the things that we struggle or miscommunicate or having bad days, and we're snippy with one another. And so it's also a reminder of us of how far God's brought us.
Yeah.
And that our marriage is not just for us. Yeah. It's also for other people.
And the hurt wasn't either.
Not for people to look up to us, because gracious, no, please don't. We might be able to teach you a couple of things, but please don't put us on a pedestal by any means. But what we've experienced is so that we can help other people through it.
Yeah. And we've told people it sounds crazy. And if you've experienced infidelity, recently within your relationship, it sounds insane, but I can honestly look back and say, like, I'm thankful that happened. I'm not thankful that we had to feel what we felt to a degree, but to some degree I am, because it gives us the opportunity to pour into other people and to show love and grace. And so, you should never go to a counselor who says, oh, I know exactly how you feel. But when somebody, especially a man, is sitting on his couch and he's pouring his heart out and he's like, I've been unfaithful to my wife and I'm devastated and I don't know what to do. And I can look at him and say, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
So it's powerful stuff.
Yeah. So we're thankful for what God's done in our relationship.
Yeah.
And how he uses that.
Yeah.
How Romans 8:28, it's all for his glory, even when it doesn't seem like it's good.
So what's something that you wish that you knew? If you could go back to when we were stupid in Florida, if you knew then, how do I say that phrase? If you knew
now what you know now. Yep.
Yeah, am I?
Uh-huh.
If you knew then what you know now.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
I have 3 college degrees. I can get through this. What would you tell yourself?
I think the biggest thing that I would tell myself is that it is my responsibility to find my own worth and value and to feel good about myself.
Yeah.
It's not, and ultimately that finding that worth is in Jesus Christ, is knowing that he finds me worthy and that he died on the cross, all of those things. Because I can look back at a lot of the bad, poor decisions that I've made and can reroute it back to not knowing who I was.
Yeah.
Not knowing what my identity was.
Yeah.
I felt bad about myself and I wanted to feel good. And so instead of going to God and saying, how did you make me? What is my identity in you when I'm feeling bad about this particular thing about myself? I would go to other relationships, whether it was friends to pump me up or you in inappropriate ways or men, other men. I would use wrong things to make me feel good. Or I would get upset with you if you didn't make me feel good about myself. And if I didn't feel good enough, it was your fault. If I didn't look good in a dress, you could have told me 6 ways to Sunday that I was beautiful, but if I still felt bad on the inside, then it was because you weren't doing a good enough job as a husband. When in reality, those were Blair's issues that Blair had to work out, not blame on Zach. So I would say take responsibility for your own actions and know your value and worth and who gives you that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you? What do you wish you knew?
I wish that I could go back and tell myself it's going to be okay. Similarly, worth and value, that you don't have to be anybody else other than who you are.
Yeah.
Who God created you to be, right? That you were created this way for a purpose, and that you do have purpose and potential. That Blair's not your mother. That she can't rescue you, but that that there is hope.
Yeah.
So, do you think if you knew that we would get married in the end, if you knew that we would still end up being together, do you think that we should have waited to get married?
I've thought about this one. This is a hard one for me because I do believe that everything happens the way that it's happened, and God's been able to work it out. He knew at the beginning what the end would be.
It's like the creator of the universe knows. Yeah.
So we would not have went through as much heartache if we had been older and more mature and wiser and had went through our own healing.
Yeah.
But I don't know that being older would have gotten us all of that. We should have been older and wiser and more mature, but would we have been?
Yeah.
Or is what we went through the catalyst that got us to be more mature and wiser and be more self-aware?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we ever would have gotten there without some of these things happening.
Yeah.
So I can't really say.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I wish that I just think about these two kids who had been through so much hurt in life, you know. We both had absentee parents. We both went through just a lot of shuffling and back and forth, and that certainly had a huge impact on our identity.
Right.
I wish that those kids who had already been through so much hurt didn't have to experience more. You know?
Yeah.
Didn't have to experience like that compound trauma, as it's called. I don't know. Just, it hurts to think about that, you know, and having to go through that.
Yeah. But knowing on the other side of it what God's able to do with it helps.
Yeah.
He doesn't waste a hurt.
Right. That's what I was going to say, that, you know, if you've gone through something difficult in your relationship, and I encourage this with folks in marriage counseling all the time, if you've gone through some kind of hurt, whether it's infidelity or just arguing and bickering or whatever it is, you can use this story to help someone else, right? You don't just go through it because everything is awful and everything hurts. We go through things for a purpose. And so use that, share your story when you're comfortable with it. We didn't share ours immediately. We didn't go around and start, blasting our business. But over time, as we've grown and healed, we've become more comfortable sharing it. And we've shared it, in various public venues, maybe not like in this format, but and it's been a help to other people. At least it's what it looks like. And hopefully it continues to be, so that we can just bless other people.
There's a bridge to a worship song that says, "Even when I don't see it, you're working." And so just because you don't know how God is going to use what you've been through does not mean he's not going to.
Exactly.
Just because you can't see the end of the story does not mean that you need to give up reading the book.
That's good. So we have been together now. We'll have been married 14 years this upcoming March. We've just crossed the 14-year together mark because, as we shared, we'd only been together 5 minutes before we decided to get married. And so we've officially been together for 14 years now. To borrow a phrase from a friend, I like to say, it's 14 years, but some days it feels like 14 minutes underwater.
With no scuba gear?
With no scuba gear. Thank you to our friend Charlie who gave us that phrase. He's been married for 25 years, and he can get away with saying it to Brandy. Is it 26? 26 years, and he can get away with saying it to Brandy, so I feel like I'm safe.
Yeah.
So
it's like after you hit that 10-year mark, then you can say some of those things. Yeah.
Right. Love Notes is a portion of our show where we give you a small tip to help you improve your relationship. And today's is really easy. A simple thank you really can go a long way in your relationship. So it turns out that according to a study published in the journal Personal Relationships, expressing gratitude to your spouse strengthens your relationship and reduces the risk of divorce. Not only does it make your partner feel valued, but it also fosters mutual respect and appreciation. So the encouragement today is say thank you, even in the small things. It really can go a long way.
Thank you for that love note. I really appreciate it.
I don't think they meant in that study to be sarcastic about it.
Oh, okay. Well, I really do appreciate it.
I've had it. I'm tired of this. I'm leaving.
Are you done?
I guess we'll see you next time if I don't get stabbed.
You're so dramatic.
It's been really fun being on stab lessons.
Stop. We'll see you guys next week.
Hopefully. Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Love Lessons Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.